Hi, I'm Dan, a psychic medium, Reiki master, and massage therapist.
And I'm Z, a psychic medium, intuitive coach, and Reiki practitioner.
And welcome to Supernatural Scuttlebutt,
A podcast dedicated to spreading spiritual awareness
metaphysical insights.
and supernatural conversations between two healers.
So sit back
Relax.
and enjoy the show. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm Dan,
And I'm Z.
and we are Supernatural Scuttlebutt. So today's episode, we are talking about the chakras. So, what are the chakras, Z?
I often think about our bodies as being like radio towers. And I think I've heard you use this analogy also. And then as a radio tower, our spine, where we start with our feet and we end with our head, would be the tower. And then each one of our chakras would be an energy center. So that's like tuning into a radio. So you're tuning into different frequencies in your energy as you move up your body. And so we do have 7 chakras that we're identifying and talking about today. And those chakras balance your energy and make your radio frequency tuned a certain way. And you really do try to have your chakras balanced so that everything is in order. And let's say one channel is not playing louder than the other channel. So I've really simplified it. So Dan, why don't you tell us your definition?
So chakras, I've come to know, is an ancient Sanskrit word, which is from ancient India. It means spinning wheel of light or spinning vortex of light. And the belief is, just like you said, it's like a radio tower going up. The interesting about the chakras, though, is they're each a different color of the rainbow, the 7 primary colors. So it's kind of interesting that Indian mysticism shows us that like our souls are light bodies, as we've heard them, are light because we have that spectrum of colors in each of our chakras. So another symbol that everyone's probably very familiar with is the medical symbol. It is the staff of Hermes Trismegistus. And I'm going to put up that image right here if you guys want to look at that. It is the staff with 2 snakes going up it, right? So that staff represents your spine. The snakes are representing what's called Kundalini energy, the energy that travels up your spine to kind of connect you to the heavens or connect to your higher self. And we've seen this medical symbol. It's been used since like the dawn of medical, doctors in Greece or whatnot. It's not known the origins, but to us that are spiritual, we kind of recognize that the staff represents healing, it represents balance, it represents like a homeostatic body. And also with the chakras, they're never all going to be balanced at the same time. There's always going to be some sort of like alignment or something off. Like the goal is to have a perfect, balance in our system. One other thing I want to mention, I'm actually wearing the Pink Floyd shirt right now. I love Pink Floyd so much. It kind of shows in that main symbol of the breakdown of colors, like lights coming in and it breaks into the color spectrum on the other side. It's such a simple symbol for showing the spirituality of like information coming in and then being dissected or processed by your mind, by your higher self, to look at the grand spectrum of how beautiful life is, right?
Oh, I really like that. Yeah, that is such a good analogy. So I'll start with the root chakra. A lot of people when they talk about chakras, they'll say, imagine a radio tower and imagine your spine as the base of the radio tower. And then imagine the energy that's coming in as different channels. So as Dan said, there's 7 different chakras that we're going to talk about today, and each one would be a different channel. So it's where you're pulling that energy in, which channel you're pulling the energy into, that would have a response. And sometimes we don't have those channels balanced and they're kind of all jumbly and confused. And it's all like if you try to tune a radio station into 2 channels at once. And then other times it's very naturally flowing. And so that's why we're talking today, what we're going to talk about. We do a lot of work with chakras. We meditate with chakras. Whenever we're going to do readings as psychic mediums, we're using our chakras. And we'll communicate with people from the other side also with messages that have to do with chakras.
Mhm.
So that's what we're doing here today. And Dan, did you want to add anything to that?
Another thing I did want to add, if you guys have ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it shows, the guiding principles over how to feel like a fully actualized human. At the base of that, it's interesting. It kind of goes with the colors of the chakras. It is a pyramid shape. I'll put that up here. You can see at the base of it, it's the base of the root chakra is red, and the base of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is red. That's safety and security. So that's having your basic needs met to feel comfortable as a human. So that means shelter, it means food, it means warmth, it means fresh water. So the basic needs being met, right? Going into the root chakra, being the first chakra, being red, that's kind of like I look at, like you said, Z, it's like the base for that radio tower. Everything builds up from there. And if you do not have a strong, stable base, anything you try to build on top of there is not going to be safe and secure when you're building up from there. So you need to have a very open, strong, grounded root chakra to be able to kind of go through those other chakras.
Yep. And so we're going to talk about the root chakra first. And when we're doing a meditation, we are grounding. We are building that base, just like Dan said, and we want to have it very strong. So that's the reason why when we meditate, we put both feet on the floor, both feet into the earth, and we ground that way. So let's talk about the root chakra. Signs of an open root chakra are a notable decrease in worry or fear, being relaxed and at ease, allowing energy to flow to you and from you. So often you'll see an increase in financial abundance, or those things that you're manifesting are coming to you easily and freely. You have less attachment to material things, more attachment to those things that are stable and steady and secure, and less outcome related attachment. So you're just not concerned. The energy is flowing, it's very smooth, it's very comfortable. You have a sense of self-spirituality. You can feel passionate about your undertakings, a connection to your core values, and feeling balanced and able to face issues without anxiety or drama, heightened emotion, and actually you try to avoid those things. You're kind of like a repellent magnet for those things when you're very, very grounded.
Right, right. Yeah, I think that's
Add anything to that? Oh, I'm sorry.
no, no, you're okay. I think that was a great explanation you had right there. Just to add to that, I think with the root chakra, like you're saying, it's like almost like you have a repellent for letting the worry and fear kind of infiltrate your energy field, right? If you're always worrying about bills, if you're worrying about like never having enough, if you're feeling in lack, if you're worried about where you're going to rest your head at night, where you're getting your next meal from, you're not going to be very grounded, and you're not going to be able to get to the next chakra to get to that higher plane, right? Because you're constantly struggling. It's the fight or flight mode. It's the survival instinct that's feeling threatened. So you can't feel comfortable and safe in your own energy and your own place that you're living. That's keeping you out of alignment with being your best self and attracting those things that you're looking to bring in.
Absolutely. And you can't listen to, for instance, a lot of news. You can't look at a lot of social media, any of those disturbing things. Are you letting that energy flow into the base of your being, into the base of this rod that's keeping all those signals going very comfortably? If you're doing that, that really isn't good for your energy, and it tends to shut that down. So it's what you're exposing yourself to and how you're interacting with the world around you. And like Dan said, it's just not letting it in. Whatever makes you feel unease or uncomfortable or fear, that is energy that shouldn't be flowing into your root chakra or any other chakra for that matter. Signs of a blocked root chakra are depression, seeking solace in unhealthy outside sources like overspending, overeating, drinking, using drugs, trying to escape reality in some way, feeling spacey or unbalanced, detached from your core values and your moral outcomes, because like Dan said, now you're just trying to survive.
Mhm.
Survival at all cost, a sense of emptiness, a feeling of lack, insecurity. Weight gain or weight loss is actually associated with this chakra, a lack of trust, a sense of heaviness energetically. Often when I'm doing a reading, if someone comes to me from the other side and they show me their root chakra, I usually know several things. They may have unalived themselves. They had a substance abuse issue. They have things that they regret and they need to make amends about. Often it will be alcohol or like I said, drugs that are involved.
Yeah, I think that when the root, going back to, like, I know a couple episodes we talked about empaths and narcissists, but part of the narcissist's job, not to keep going into this again, but like the narcissist is always kind of like trying to attack that root chakra, to put you into that worrisome state, to make you fearful, because they know that when you're fearful, you're unbalanced and you're easily more susceptible to manipulation. So if they constantly are making you scared over things you're doing, walking on eggshells, over micromanaging everything you're thinking you're doing to try to people please people, it's making you feel unsafe and unsecure all the time. So you can be manipulated. So that fear and worry, if you're always constantly feeling that, panic attacks, Z said depression, I even go far as to say anxiety as well, because it's kind of, they play one or the other. You go through these modes where like you're super depressed and then you get like super anxious, but you get so anxious that it makes you depressed and you're constantly riding these like wild waves of emotions. That's usually also the start of your spiritual journey. If you're just waking up, you're like, why am I having this anxiety and fear that I can't place it with? It's because your root is trying to heal itself. It's trying to unclog that vortex of light and to open up those pathways. But to do that, you kind of have to unclog those old emotions and go through them and sort through them and clear them so that root can be strong and stable and work your way up.
Good point. And if anybody out there today is going to start with a chakra, if you've never worked with your chakras before, there are plenty of good root chakra meditations out there. And this is a chakra that you need to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
This one, because this is your root. This connects you. This grounds you. This makes you solid and strong.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the illnesses that are associated with a blocked root chakra are depression, as we've talked about a lot, sciatica, lower back pain, varicose veins, rectal issues, and even immune disorders. So take a look at that list, see where you are, go out and plant your feet on Mother Earth and just connect.
Let it go. That's what I always say. When you're trying to ground, let it go. Like, go into the beach, getting into water. I just say, like, when you're connecting, be conscious and be mindful of that connection. Try to feel that connection with the earth, because Mother Earth, we are a part of the earth. The earth is a part of us. She wants to take away that hurt and pain, but you got to let it go. And we get so in this victimized mode that we hold it all in. We hold it all in. We think it's ours to hold on to. Just release, just let it be. Just give yourself permission to let it out, and it will come out. But it takes practice. It takes time, just like anything else, just like meditation.
Such a good point, because if you find yourself clenching, which we all do, and we clench from the bottom up, and we
Mm-hmm.
realize that we're clenching. And Dan, as a massage therapist, I'm sure he sees many, many people every day who clench, and that clenching is just holding on. It's holding
Right.
that fear and all of those different negative emotions.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, that's what I even like. This is why spirituality and the massage work, I've noticed the collaboration between the two, because if I'm using too much pressure on someone, they're going to tighten up and freeze, and I can't do the work because their muscles are going to be in protective mode. You're the same way. If somebody's trying to push you to heal, or you're pushing yourself too hard or being too critical, that means that it's like too much for you, and you're going to clamp up and go into this protective shielding mode too. So just give some affirmations of saying it's okay to be breathing, it's okay to ground, it's okay to just let it go. You don't have to hold all this stuff all the time.
Oh, I love that. And if you're a light worker, and one of the things that we've noticed in our classes, if you're a light worker and you come in and you say, I'm feeling floaty, like I feel not attached. I feel very detached. I feel like a balloon floating. The first thing that Dan or I will say to you is ground. You've got to sit down and ground.
Or you feel buzzy. I've heard other people say that, like you feel like there's electricity or a current going through you, and that might give like false sensations of anxiety. It might think that you're stirring up and you're like, I can't relax, I can't sit down, I can't. You need to ground more. You have too much energy in your body and it's trying to find a way out, and you're not consciously letting it out. So if you feel like that, amped up, antsy, sometimes my dog will feel my energy. So I know if I'm not grounded, she'll be kind of a little chaotic and frantic because she's feeling my energy too. So I know I have to go and ground, or I got to bring my dog with me, and we both have to ground to kind of clear and control that energy, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm chuckling in my head because that is what happened today. And Dan and I talked about it before we got on this podcast, and I hadn't grounded thoroughly enough. And so I had just one issue after another, including with the computer. And very quickly we realized it's just because I needed to ground. I needed to let go of that energy. It was just very fast.
But
And
that's a great point you brought up too, because somebody that's an experienced energy worker like you still has days like that. And I have those days too, where you're just like, you're like frozen with energy, because it's like one thing after the next. Like Z was telling me, the neighbor came over, then her friend called and she couldn't get her off the phone. Then the dogs are barking and going crazy. Her husband's bringing in the package. Like all these things are just happening at once, and you're like head spinning almost. You can't even think straight. But that's a good sign that you have to balance and refocus and recenter yourself so you can kind of go back into your day with fresh eyes, with fresh energy.
yep, and then Dan and I were laughing because literally our guides made me freeze on the screen. It's like you're not going anywhere, you're just frozen. It was such a good reminder. Okay, so next we have the sacral chakra. And as Dan said, the color for the root chakra is red. The color for the sacral chakra is orange. It's a beautiful orange. So picture that, you guys. Between where you're sitting and where your belly button is, you have this beautiful orange energy that's flowing. Signs of an open sacral chakra. You prioritize self-care. You're taking care of yourself. It matters to you what happens to you. You reevaluate your relationships with others. Perhaps you're looking at how a relationship can be better, or do you need changes in that relationship? How does that benefit both of you, not just you, but both of you? You're inspired to use your gifts related to expressing yourself. Art, writing, photography, whatever it would be that you use to express yourself out in the world. You're not afraid to put it out there, and you just have this muse about you. You feel more at peace. You're open to change. You're tuned into manifesting in a very positive, creative way. And there's a sense of freedom and happiness about the future. It feels very bright. It feels very light, and you're more in tune in general. What would you like to add?
The way I've come to learn it, all you said was great, but the way I've come to learn the sacral, it's kind of about your emotions too. It's like the emotional chakra. It's how you regulate your emotions. So if it's open and it's functioning properly, it's hard to kind of trigger you. It's hard for things to get to you, and you're kind of just, living a little bit more peaceful. It also kind of makes you a little bit more empathetic to other people's emotions, and to maybe understand them, what they're trying to say with their words if they're not articulating correctly. It helps you feel others a little bit more, and you allow them to be, instead of you putting your judgments or criticisms on them. Like you said, creativity, it's a big part of it. It's called the water chakra too. So it flows, and if something's blocking that flow, you're going to feel the opposite of that, right? You're going to feel, well, first of all, I just want to say, like, the thing that blocks this chakra is shame, right? Shame, sexual misfunction, being highly sexual or not having regulated sexual energies, maybe getting sexually obsessed. That's a very bad way to block this chakra. But a lot of people hold shame there. And I've noticed people that have gut issues, they seem to hold all the shame into that chakra, so it doesn't even have to be anything that you've done necessarily wrong, but you're holding on to those feelings of shame about things, or you're worried what other people are thinking all the time. You're worried about how other people are perceiving your emotions. You're overly tiptoeing or walking on eggshells because you're scared of disturbing somebody else's emotions. So when you have a healthy, open sacral chakra, to me, it means you have a better sense of regulating your emotions and other people's emotions, and you're very clear on what to trust emotion wise, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Oh, that totally makes sense, because if you don't have an open sacral chakra, you feel detached. And that detachment is not just to people, it's to the world. So you have a lack of inspiration and a lack of sexual desire, or as Dan said, perhaps it's the opposite. I mean, you're full bore obsessed with sex.
Mm-hmm.
That causes the shame that he's talking about, causes loneliness, and you feel isolated and you feel a lot of anxiety. The illness is associated with a blockage in the chakra, urinary tract infections, kidney issues, hip or lower back pain, sexual issues like we've talked about, and reproductive issues. So you could see how that's about fertility, and not just fertility with your body, but fertility with your mind,
Mm-hmm.
fertility in every way that you relate to the world. And in order to be fertile in that way, that shame is something to work on, as Dana said, because if you have shame, it's a blockage, it's blocking. And it's
Most of the Sorry,
you.
Z. Most of that shame usually comes from childhood. I've noticed in clients too. It's something that they've felt shameful or made to feel shameful by a parent or a sibling, and they kind of kept that feeling with them their whole life. And they just like look for situations to continually perpetuate that shame. So it might be not the situation might not be causing shame that you're in now, but you relate that situation to something that happened in your past. So you kind of like keep that shame alive inside of you because it's a familiar emotion. And I've noticed that people have gut health. They have maybe like bigger guts in that area. There's like bloating. It feels like you're retaining a lot of water, right? Once again, it's a water chakra. So I've noticed that too. And when somebody's been on my table for Reiki, and I've kind of got to the sacral, and I've cleared and balanced that chakra, they say they feel like so much lighter. They feel less bloated. They feel like they're flowing a little bit easier again. Okay. So that sacral chakra, even though it's not talked about a lot, I think it's really like that stepping stone. If you get past the root and you get to that sacral chakra and that one's blocked, that one causes a lot of, I
Mhm.
think, spiritual discomfort more than maybe any other one, just because it makes your body feel uncomfortable to be in.
Yes, and like Dan said, we will often see people in our classes that have grown up in very fundamentally religious households where this chakra is blocked, because associated with this chakra is sexuality, and there's a lot of shame and a lot of questionable stuff that goes along with that based on belief systems in religious settings. And so it's something that if you're feeling that way, it's okay, but you just need to work through it,
Mhm.
because we're leading up to from the root chakra all the way to the divine. And if this is not open, and if it's something that you're not working on, then it's not going to allow that signal to flow up
Mhm.
that radio tower.
Another thing I want to bring up, I think that's why a lot of people have such a hard time coming out of the closet when they're gay, homosexual, whatever they want to identify as, because they have that shame of that being so wrong, and you're told it's wrong, and you try to push it down. If you grow up, like Z said, in a very fundamental religious background, whatever it may be, that that's bad, but your human wants that because that's you, that's your authentic self, that's what you desire. So if you're hiding and shaming and stuffing that down, that's going to be very unhealthy. You have to find a way to be prideful in who you are. I guess that's what it comes to with the whole gay pride thing. You have to be willing to accept yourself, to love yourself, and to remove that shame. I think that's what it comes down to.
Oh, absolutely. And who is anyone else to tell you why you should be ashamed,
Mhm.
or what you should or shouldn't be? And that is what this chakra is about. This is about your individuality. There's nobody else like you who can create like you or live like you. And so just being you and being your best self is really what this is all about when we talk about the sacral chakra.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll move on to the navel chakra. And the color for the navel chakra is yellow, and it's just a beautiful sunny color. So picture yourself with this beautiful sun, your own spectacular, beautiful sun in the middle of your body. And signs of an open navel chakra, which you call it the solar plexus chakra. And I always just reduce it down because whenever I do meditations,
She's like, your navel. And I'm like, what? Oh, the solar plexus. Same chakra, different name.
like everybody focus on your navel.
And I put my finger in my belly button.
So self-confidence is a sign of an open solar plexus chakra. A sense of purpose. You meet obstacles with courage, and you're solution driven. It's all about that. You remain humble but self-assured, you're disciplined, and you're honest, and you have integrity. And this is not leading an ego-based life. This is integrating. So this chakra ultimately is about how we interact responsibly in the world.
Mm-hmm. And I call it the sun of your soul. That's how I like to describe it. It's yellow. It looks like the sun, but if you look at anything, it's like that's where your projection of your energy comes from. So when you have that open, healthy sun of your soul, it almost looks like your vibe is glowing. You're more attractive. People want to talk to you. You're more open. It feels like you're just more in flow. You trust yourself. You trust your knowings. You believe in yourself, and you project that energy out, and people can pick up and feel on that. It's almost like you're radiating this own energy of your soul. Your sun is blasting this energy out, and people want to bask in that energy because it feels good to be in. It feels warm. It feels comfortable. It feels accepting. So like when Z said, the solar plexus is open, you're feeling good, you're feeling free, you're feeling connected. When it's a little bit dimmed, you're really kind of questioning yourself. You're really in your head. You're really not trusting your knowings. You're really not confident. You lose confidence. On the other side of that, there could be an overactive solar plexus, which would be like an intense ego. I mean, all of this is within balance, right? It could be over or underactive. I just want to make that point too. Your chakra could be working so hard because your other chakras aren't functioning as much, and it's looking for that homeostatic balance again. So if it's overacting and it's unhealthy, it's like, this is for me. This is my ego. I'm the best. It's arrogance. It's overconfidence. It's being, it's being that jerk nobody wants, that's how I kind of see. But like society kind of wants to make us that way because we have to be a little bit boastful. We have to show we're the best at something. Businesses kind of act like that. Salespeople kind of act like that. CEOs act like that. Like, no one's smarter than me. No one's better than me. I know what's going on. But that's all a fake projection of them trying to hide that small little person inside of them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And if somebody walks in to commercial break, Beach Dreams Coffee Shop in North Myrtle Beach, where we love to go, love to hang out, love to have all of our classes there and our meetings there. If somebody walks into that shop and they're so arrogant and they're all pumped up and everything, I feel like saying to them, whoa, put that navel chakra away. It's way too open. That's blinding everybody because it's really almost like that's what they're trying to do. It's like the ego is just trying to blast out there and say, look at me, I'm the best. And that's the opposite of having a healthy navel chakra, really.
Right. I mean, going back to the sun reference, it's like you want to be in like a comfortable 80, 85 degrees, not 100-degree weather, with the sun with UV index at 10 blast. You want to step outside. That's what it feels like when someone's ego or their solar plexus is so bright and so wide. You're just like, it's kind of like repellent rather than attractive.
So true. That is so true. And you know what? Those are the people we talked about in one of our other videos where it's so much about them that they don't even see you. They don't hear you. It doesn't matter who you are. They just want to blast that on you. And so they're having a conversation you could walk away from and come back to, and they don't even notice that you were gone.
And that chakra seems to be the only one that's functioning on this person, right? Because like the energy is just strong, but they don't really have much good things to say. They don't really contribute much, but they just want to tell you how amazing and powerful and whatever else they are, you know? So it's like, you know that there's insecurity, there's a little bit of shame maybe mixed in there. There's worry or fear you're not going to be accepted. So they go extra hard to get your attention. They go extra hard to kind of prove their worth and tell you how amazing they are because they really don't feel that way on the inside. They might be hiding that a little bit.
So, signs of a blocked navel chakra or solar plexus chakra, as Dan calls it, and probably 3/4 of the world.
Mhm.
Trouble expressing yourself, being overly rigid or controlling, being needy, being very thirsty and needy, quick to lose your temper, victim's mentality, feeling fear or being afraid to act, poor self-esteem, stuck and unable to move forward.
Mm.
I'll go ahead and say the illnesses associated with the chakra are eating and digestive disorders, stomach aches and pains, diabetes, chronic fatigue, depression, and substance abuse go hand in hand with this. So you're seeing it in a couple places now that we've talked about that have to do with chakras.
Mhm. So the interesting thing, we went over the first three chakras, the root, the sacral, and the navel, right? We call these first three chakras, these are like the earth chakras. This is like what kind of guides over your human, your physical body, your emotions, your connection to other people, your interactions, your connection with yourself. This is kind of like the earthly plane chakras. As we get into the next chakras, we're getting to the higher dimensions. We're getting into the higher levels of spirituality. So this is all the physical, like I said, the earth, ourselves, our emotions. But then as we go higher up, now we're getting into the higher dimensional capabilities of what our chakras can do.
And you can see where we're going with this, what Dan just said. I mean, you can't flow to those higher dimensional chakras. If all these chakras are blocked, where's the energy going? It's staying down there. It's not going up there towards that divine, towards the chakra that represents the divine and the connection to spirituality.
There was this great scene from that show called Avatar: The Last Airbender. Did you ever hear of that?
I did, but I didn't watch it.
It's like a kid's cartoon, but it really went over like it goes over spirituality and spiritual concepts. And this guru, Japanese man, I forget the character's name. He's showing like a young boy and explaining the chakras, and he's showing them pools of water, right? And he's like, if this is blocked, then the water's not flowing through. So, if, like what Z said, if these three chakras are blocked, that water or energy is not going up. It's not connecting. You're not getting that antenna to get that guidance, right? So it's really important if you're starting out on your journey to work on these. It's important to work on all the chakras, but these are the three main ones that you need to focus on if you're on this beginning of the healing journey, because those are the ones that hold the most trauma, the most damage, the most things that are going to make you clamp down and not be open to receive and connect to those higher realms. So if you're feeling blocked in any of those areas, there needs to be more work done there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And also, if you're a light worker and you're endeavoring to be more spiritual and to connect on a higher level, then it's so important that you're working on these chakras simply because they allow you to trust yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to trust yourself when you're working in areas where you can't actually see who you're communicating with, and you just have to believe it.
Mm-hmm. So what's the next chakra, Z?
All right, so the next chakra is the heart chakra. It gives us the ability to experience meaningful relationships. We have an appreciation of and beauty of all things, not just others, but all things, the earth and everything around us. It gives us a gift of heart-centered intuition. It gives us the ability to experience unconditional love, which a lot of people define the universe as unconditional love. So it gives us the opportunity to experience firsthand the universe. It transcends the ego so that we can have a connection with the divine that is unhindered. And that's so important. And that is starting this spiritual journey, like Dan talked about.
Mm-hmm. And the heart chakra, when you have an open functioning heart chakra, from my experience, like I feel like I was closed off for a very long time. When my heart chakra started opening up, the feelings and the connection of love becomes this new powerful currency that you never even experienced before. You can feel the divine love kind of going through there. We've known that in the past couple of years, there's been a lot of research done that the heart has its own consciousness in its body. It actually has more fibers, or it almost has its own synapses, kind of like the brain. They know that there's more connections wired in the heart space than there is in the brain. So that means that there is a heart-centered consciousness. People lead with their heart. People wear their heart on their sleeve. We hear these terms all the time, but it's really true. And we've also found that like your intuition, or when something happens, it's quicker for things to travel to the heart than it is the head, because things have to travel from the heart to the head back to the heart. It's easier just for things to be processed by the heart itself, emotion wise or whatever. So your heart kind of has its own frequency when it's clear and under control. I was saying before, like you feel like that divine love, you are open. It's almost like that's the bridge to spirit. That's the beginning of the doorway to open up the spirit. And when that starts to open up, like I can't even define it. Like this is what they talk about in enlightenment with the Buddha and Tibetan monks, and that divine consciousness love. It's like this feeling you can't even put into words. It's just so overwhelmingly powerful, and also being Reiki practitioners, both of us, it opens your heart chakra so you can be that healer so much bigger, and it's so much more expansive that you have this capacity to heal with that love. It's just it's just hard to put it in the words. It's just such an awesome feeling. It's just so overwhelming. It kind of gets you emotional, because you just realize when your heart chakra is open how much love there actually is in the universe. When all those other chakras are closed, you think nobody loves me. I'm such a loser. I'm a low person. How can I ever, this, that, and the other thing. When you start to do this self-healing journey and really get onto the path of divine love, when you feel that love, it's like you don't want to stop that connection anymore. You realize what you've been missing, and it's so amazing and expansive. It's like a waterfall of love just coming through you, crashing, and it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful feeling. Yeah.
I'm so glad you talked about that, because when I've done readings in the past, and I know this has happened to you, I know you're going to agree when I say it. If someone on the other side wants to send their love, they send it to this chakra. And when they send it to this chakra, for me, I can't describe the feeling, but the instant emotion is just crying, because it's so powerful and so strong. And as we were taught as mediums, you're not supposed to be sitting there crying with a client. But when there's that kind of emotional love that's indescribable and unconditional and coming from someone on the other side for their mom or their child or whoever it's coming for, it's such a download, and it's so powerful that you get chills from head to toe. You feel like a hair on your body standing up. And then this feels so full to overflowing. And as Dan said, there just are no words for it.
It's, this came to me. It's like profound emotions of beauty, just like such beautiful, loving, caring energy. And I know Z does this all the time with people when she gives readings. I've been there when she does it, where she's just like at the end of the reading, she's like, I need to give you a hug. Like it's like almost like their spirit guide or their family, and the other side's like, you got to give her a hug. You got to give her my love, and through you, and like you're the channel to give that love. But Z makes everybody feel like they're getting hugged by the loved one she connected with on the other side.
That's the right thing for you to say.
And it's so healing for them. I could see it. Like they need that hug. It's like they're breathing in new air. They're like, oh, like like they're getting that sense of relief that they haven't gotten from. So it's like really amazing to watch that when you do that with people.
It's really interesting you said that, because somebody who had lost their dog, and you know who I'm talking about, and we were at the shop and they had just lost their dog. And it's that it was like coming through that heart chakra from their dog, and their dog was still sitting there, and I could see him even though they were holding his body, which still makes me emotional. But I could feel that love for him. And it just propelled me forward. Like if you have that love coming from that being on the other side, it's propelling you forward, and it's saying, please do this for me. So you have to do it. I mean, you can't argue with it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that you felt that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when your heart chakra activates too, everything you start to do is through love, right? Like, what are we doing here? Like, why do we do readings? Like, what do we do this because we want to help people and we love them so much. We love humanity so much. We believe in it so much. We want to get the messages out there. We want to help people. And like we always say, like the money really is not the number one priority. Like that's the
Right.
energetic exchange, but like really it's to help people love themselves more and to live a better embodied life. But going back to that dead dog and that energy, what blocks the heart chakra? Sorrow, grief, sadness. So a sudden loss, family member loss, just like seeing horrific things or being in a war or like just having the maybe even like someone that works in the emergency room or paramedic. I'm sure you could relate, Z. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, as you've seen so many things and you're desensitized
Mm-hmm.
too much. You can't take it in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just too much. But yeah, and then one of the signs of a closed heart chakra, holding grudges,
Mm,
putting yourself in the role of rescuer or savior. Now, a lot of empaths do that, and a lot of other people think, well, that's very noble. But time and again, as my husband would say, the rescuer becomes the rescuee or the victim
right, right.
and it turns around. So putting yourself in the role of the victim, opposite to that, being codependent,
Mm-hmm.
feeling closed down and distrustful, being overly defensive, feeling reclusive, not wanting to be social, not wanting to connect with anybody, wanting to sit in isolation and be alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I talk to people, I talk to empaths especially, like trying to tell them that you can't just give all your energy away. You can't just feel people's emotions for them because they're never going to learn. They're just going to expect you to be there so you could sort through their emotional baggage for them. And that's one of the tough lessons you learn as an empath too. You cannot take on everybody else's problems for them and solve them. You could be a willing, open ear, but you can't be that ear every day. You can't keep sorting through people's messy lives for them. They have to figure out their own stability. When I tell a lot of people my readings is too, like that are like, but that's my mom, but that's my brother, but that's my coworker. I feel obligated to help them. Like a lifeguard that's going out to save a victim in the water will not put himself in a harm's danger. He'll stick the buoy out and let someone grab that buoy because they know if they go by that person, they're going to be in survival mode. They're going to drag you down just to save themselves. So same type of thing. Like you can't use your energy. You have to kind of stick that buoy out there and keep your boundaries strong and be like, here's the lifeline, but I'm not going to get dragged down and die for you, you know?
Right, right. And how many times have we all heard you put your mask on first if you're in an airplane and all of the masks fall down from the ceiling? You have to breathe. You have to
Mhm.
survive. You have to do that first.
You can't save everybody else if you're not saving yourself first.
Yeah. And another thing that my husband says is that the safety net quickly becomes the hammock. So
Mm,
giving somebody the safety net, but they can settle in there, and then it's very comfortable for them to be in that position, but it's not comfortable for you anymore. And as
right,
an empathic especially, you don't know how to say, that's my safety net, that's not your hammock.
right, right. That's a really good phrase. I like that one. Never heard that before.
So illnesses associated with an out-of-balance heart chakra, breathing ailments such as bronchitis or pneumonia, heart or circulatory related issues that someone would have. Um, can you think of anything else?
What just came to my head is like blood clots, maybe, but that would be all cardiovascular type stuff. You know, something involved with the heart where there are blockages that might be energetic, but then manifest as physical.
Mhm.
Yeah, pulmonary issues, breathing, heart attack, stroke, you know, that type of stuff. High blood pressure, maybe. All things that are kind of associated with the heart. Uh,
Yeah.
intense grief or intense sadness. Maybe also like looking at the negative world out there. I'm sure everybody can kind of feel this. I've been feeling like the collective energy has been very heavy because of the news and, you know, the politics and the wars. And it's been growing the last couple of years, but now it's getting to like this precipice where you can almost feel it in your heart space that other people are feeling so demoralized and beaten that I think there's a millions of closed heart chakras right now just because they can't see the hope and the beauty in the world anymore. So I think that's a big part of it too.
That is such a good point, because when the news comes on and some other bad news happens, I think we feel it in our heart chakra first. It's like somebody has taken a knife and they just stabbed it in there with that bad news. And then it tends to stay in there and collect in your heart chakra. And you're like, I can't be hurt like this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't leave this chakra open.
And another good point, like that knife Z's talking about, it's almost like that knife that's in there becomes a magnet for all bad news. So now, like that little energetic knife that's invisibly in your heart space, it is looking for the problems in the world. It is looking for things to make you feel sorrowful and miserable because it validates that feeling, you know? And we if you're not fully in tune with your emotions, you just keep letting it build and keep letting it build. And I've met like a lot of people that are, you know, retired down here that like you can kind of tell their heart chakra's been closed a long time. Just how they talk about people, how they talk about the planet, how they talk about politics. It's like, you know, that they're just kind of closed off from the world because the world is a hard place, and it if you let it, it will harden your heart and it will keep you in that lack of love.
Yes. Yep. That's such a good point. I want to go back to what you talked about with grief. And it's important with this chakra. And it's important if you're a light worker, but it's important in general too. But I've met so many people who are just mired in grief. And I understand it.
Mhm.
You've lost someone very important to you, and you can't get beyond that. But the words that those people will say to me as a medium is, I don't believe in anything. I don't believe in God anymore. And I certainly have not seen any signs that my son or daughter, mother, father, whoever it is around, because there's nothing there. If there was, they would have appeared in front of me, or they would have given me a sign. Well, if this is closed with grief, we all know you're not going to be able to see those signs. You're not going to be able to connect to that.
Right.
They could be waving flags and dancing around you in the middle of your kitchen and giving you every sign on the face of the planet, and you're still not going to see it.
Mm-hmm. That actually reminds me of a movie. I don't know if you ever saw it. It's called What Dreams May Come with Robin
I love
Williams.
that. I
Such a
love
good movie, right? So for those that don't know, it's a movie about the afterlife. Robin Williams is a doctor and he gets hit. He's trying to save someone in a bad accident, and in turn he gets killed. So he goes to heaven and he's kind of creating his reality. He's kind of getting like the landscape of doing like energy work and living in another dimension on the other side. And because of the grief and the loss that his wife had of losing their kids and losing Robin Williams, she ended her own life, and she ends up not in like a hell, but it's almost like a like not even like a purgatory. It's almost like it felt like a prison. Like she's in like this dilapidated, dark version of her world, and she's so grief stricken. Even on the other side, all she could feel is her grief, and it shows like Robin Williams' journey to go into the underworlds and go through all this darkness just to try to reach her with love. And it's like such a profound feeling because it shows when you're locked into that house of grief, it's very hard to get out of it. It's very hard to kind of open the door and step out of that grief if you're not willing to. Even she was suffering in her waking life. She was suffering on the other side, still thinking she's stuck in that place of grief because that's how intense it is. And we've even heard the same thing with spirits, right? These wayward souls that have died horribly in a house or on the battlefield, and they still think they're locked into that grief pattern of having to fight another battle or whatever it is, or they're constantly replaying that death that was traumatic. It's almost like they're stuck in that energy and something has to get in to clear it. And that energy is love. That's the only thing that's going to clear that energy.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought that movie up, because that's such a good depiction. And it feels truth. Feels like it has truth in it.
Mm-hmm.
Never mind that it's ironic that ultimately in the end, Robin Williams, ended up doing what his wife does in that movie, but
Spoiler alert. It's been out for 25 years, folks, so don't blame us.
exactly. But her life when she transitioned, her life transitioned with her. Her life was
Mhm.
full of grief. It was dark and unhappy and miserable, and she couldn't see anything else while she was in this dimension, and she went to another dimension, she transferred into that dimension, and still the same thing was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like that here too with people. How
Yeah.
many people have you met who are still stuck like that?
I was stuck in it. I was stuck in that for a long time and I couldn't find a way out. It was hard for me to love myself. It was hard to love the life I was living. It just makes you like this like walking shadow of a human, and I don't really know. I don't really have a good answer of how to break through it, but like you really need to like want it at a deeper level to get through it, to be able to find the way out.
Yeah, because at some point that becomes your identity.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a really good book that I read about a man. He was a psychiatrist, and he was talking about what he imagined happens after we cross over. And he imagined that there were people, and I think this really happens. I mean, I've seen it in some of the meditations I've done. And there's sort of like hospitals where people go when they're transitioning and they've gone from being here in this dimension and then they move on to the next. And they have to transition slowly because they have such an identity with something. So, for instance, he had a patient whose identity was tied to a wheelchair that they were in. And they were and they were victimized and they felt very bad for themselves the whole time that they were alive on earth. And so he imagined that person was in like a hospital setting where they had to go through being able to realize themselves as not being the wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
So that when you say here, what can people do here? It's realizing that you are not your grief. And also that grief is not love. The longer you grieve doesn't mean that's how much you love somebody. I think you let them come through as a medium if you'll just try to let them know your love, open up, just be open to receiving their messages and loving them.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think when somebody passes, like we tend to hold on to the traumatic part of their passing for us, and we should as humans we should realize like it's sad they left us, give it time to mourn, to grieve, but also there should be like a celebration. They're free from the vessel, they're free, they're out there. A lot of people don't like to believe in God or the afterlife, but it's you got to realize like you got to celebrate them for the memories you have with them, and they're free now. They're free to do other things. That they're still there. The love still exists. That's the one thing that I've learned in this journey too. Like the love never goes away. It never goes away, and it's true. Like whatever you put out there, it always comes back times 10. If you really have an open, true heart and you send that energy out there, it will be there. And Z, even from connecting with your loved ones that pass, like when they're around, you feel like in your heart chakra, you feel that love immediately. Like when I think about my grandparents, or I have like an inkling there in my field, it's like I know it's them because it's like my heart just lights up immediately. That the love is transcending the physical to go onto the other side, to the non-physical.
Right. And one of the things that we've talked about as mediums all the time is the fact that when someone is around you in spirit, let's say I'm in the kitchen and my dad comes up to me and he's in spirit, I'm immediately going to start thinking about him. We've heard this time and again. I've been thinking about my dad all day long. I've been thinking about my sister. And so what do you want to do next? Do you want to immediately hand grief to that person who has traveled that distance to be standing next to you? Or do you want to be open with love and compassion, unconditional love, and just say, I'm so glad that you're here. And then start celebrating that person's life and celebrating your relationship, because there is a difference. And we're not being condemning and we're not trying to shame anybody. We're just trying to put a different perspective on it.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're not grieving their loss. Let's put it that way. They're not grieving it. If they're on the other side, like you said, they went through that hospital. They're not grieving their own loss. They're trying to watch and encourage on the other side and send you love because they know you're grieving their loss, right? So it's like you holding on to that pain of the death and everything that kind of might be like left over from their life that you're trying to resolve and regulate. They want to send you love. They want you to do well while you're here. They don't want you to be carrying around this heaviness and density. They want you living your best life and they want to support you doing that. That's one thing we forget as humans. Like, they don't want us to feel sorry or bad or remorseful or shameful, but it's part of the journey. It's part of the journey to learn that.
So true. That is so true. And I've had so many signs from my family members. I'm sure that you have too. And I've had physical signs. And it was all when I decided, okay, I'm going to be open to that. I'm going to let it happen. It's going to flow. And suddenly all of that started happening for me.
Mhm.
So again, we're not shaming anybody. We're not being critical of anybody. But if you can move, grief is very thick. It's very dense. It's like you're stuck in quicksand.
Mhm.
You can break free from that, pull one foot out, try to pull another foot out and move forward. And then celebrate that love that you have and that connection that you have that can't be altered by time. It's still there. That person is still there with you.
Mhm. Stay tuned for next week for part 2 of the chakras.